Eastland County, Texas, a 1927 bank robbery leads to a chase, arrests, a shootout, and prison for the so-called Santa Claus bank robbers. Today, we're in Eastland, Texas to explore the old Eastland County Jail, site of yet another shootout, as well as the last lynch mob hanging in the state of Texas.
Texas is full of lost history, from lost cemeteries to abandoned buildings, from the infamous to the obscure. Hitch a ride and travel across the Lone Star State, looking for hints of Texas' colorful past, our lost history. This is Expedition Texas, and we're gonna find it.
The legendary Santa Claus bank robbery took place in Cisco, Texas, December 23, 1927. Dressed as Santa Claus, ex-con Marshall Ratliff entered the First National Bank of Cisco, along with Henry Helms, Robert Hill, and Louis Davis. They demanded the money and loaded their bags with cash and bonds. Police were alerted and quickly converged on the bank. After a shootout with the police, the men escaped. They were apprehended 7 days later in nearby Graham, Texas. They were convicted and sent to prison, but the story didn't end there.
One of them, Marshall Ratliff, won a new trial, and the deputies went back to Huntsville on a bench warrant, picked him up and brought him back here. Well, during that time period, he had somehow or another determined that he could get himself out of a jail or something by acting crazy. He was being housed on the second floor of the old jail, and he was acting so crazy that they left the cell unlocked and went upstairs to check the other prisoners.
After going to prison, Marshall Ratliff had what I think was an elaborate scheme to get out of jail for good, and it involved pulling one over on the Eastland County Sheriff's deputies, and in doing so, a jailer ended up dead.
He snuck downstairs, found a gun in a desk or somewhere, we don't know exactly where, went back upstairs and shot one of the jailers. The other jailer tackled him, and they fell down the stairs to the bottom floor of the jail, and in the process, I think broke arm or leg, I'm not sure exactly which. And the last shot went off in the jail. There's a bullet hole in the ceiling down there, and supposedly the bullet's still lodged up there. I have not dug around in the hole to see, but they claim it's in there.
After killing the jailer, the townspeople had had enough of Marshall Ratliff.
And the townspeople got pretty upset, and they assembled in the street out here on White Street, out in front of the jail, and they demanded the prisoner, Marshall Ratliff. And when they took him out the door of the living quarters out of the jail, he was naked. Well, some of the people said, well, that's not going to work, put something on him. So they brought him back inside, wrapped a tow sack around him, then took him across the street and hung him. The first rope broke.
That didn't stop them.
So they went and got another rope and hung him up again, and this time it worked. About 2,500 people, they claim, and supposedly it's the last lynch mob hanging in the state of Texas occurred right here. I can't verify that for a fact, but that's what they tell me. And the first rope broke, and they went and got another rope, and they hung him, and this is the one that actually did the job.
Stopped in Eastland, Texas to learn the story of the Santa Claus bank robbers and to explore the old Eastland County Jail. The group of robbers were led by a Santa suit-wearing criminal by the name of Marshall Ratliff. After going to prison for the crime, Ratliff won a new trial, but his transfer back to Eastland was nothing more than an attempt at revenge and escape. After shooting a jailer, Ratliff was detained again. When word got out about the shooting, a crowd of people showed up at the jail demanding the prisoner. Now we're at the site of the shootout to look around with the help of Eastland County Sheriff Wayne Bradford.
Hey, Sheriff Bradford.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing great.
So we're here at the historic Eastland County Jail, and we're about to go inside and see where one of the Santa Claus bank robbers was held. And I understand there was a shooting that happened inside this jail?
That's correct. It started on the second floor and then they tumbled down the stairs and wound up down here on the first floor.
And as the violence escalated, I understand that one of the last lynch mob hangings in the state of Texas happened right here outside the jail.
That's correct.
Let's go see all this history here.
Our first stop entering the old jail was the same place that Marshal Ratliff would have entered, the old book-in office.
This is where the prisoners were brought in each time, and they were booked in. The actual booking process was paper back then, and of course, instead of computers like we have nowadays.
So it's all handwritten in here. Oh, there is his name right there.
This Marshal Ratliff, he was brought back here on a bench warrant. He is one of the Santa Claus bank robbers from Cisco. And when he was brought back, this is the official record of where he was brought back. And it says he was taken out and hung by a mob of about 2,500 people.
So this was recorded at the time that it happened?
Yes.
This is, wow. The date they left and why he left. That's incredible. But that was
1929, I believe.
November 19th, 1929.
Then, off in the corner in a little frame, was the original rope that was used to hang Marshal Ratliff.
Whenever he was taken out of here by the lynch mob, he was taken across the street and he was strung up on a guy wire from a utility pole, whatever you want to call it. And the first rope broke, and they went and got another rope and they hung him, and this is the one that actually did the job. The chief of police here in Eastland during that time, Mr. Lawrence, took that from the neck of Marshal Ratliff after he was hung.
Wow.
And they claim it's the last lynch mob hanging in the state of Texas.
So this rope right here was the last one.
That's it.
And man, and that's Marshal Ratliff, huh?
That's him. There's very few photos of him, but that's his mugshot photo.
Was that taken at book in here?
I assume it was. It's been in that frame with the rope all these years.
After Ratliff shot the jailer, another jailer sprung into action and tried to wrestle the gun away from him. During the struggle, they tumbled back down the stairs where the gun was fired again.
You'll also notice that there's a hole in the ceiling up here. Most of the shootout that occurred was upstairs on the second floor. The other jailer tackled the guy that had Mr. Marshal Ratliff, who had the gun. They fell down these stairs, and according to the story, the last bullet in the gun was fired and it's lodged in the ceiling right up above here.
That last bullet that Marshal Ratliff fired is still lodged somewhere in that ceiling.
You'll notice several of the photos that we have in the display case here. This photo is of the posse in Cisco, where they were assembling to go after Marshal Ratliff, one of the Santa Claus bank robbers, not long after the robbery occurred. Several more photos about the people that were involved. This is an article that was in the local paper about, or actually it was in the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, I believe, about the grand jury probe after the lynching. And here you'll have Cy Bradford, who was a deputy sheriff with Eastland County, and a story about him. He is the one that actually caught Marshal Ratliff up close to Graham after the robbery. This belt came off of Marshal Ratliff when he was captured by Cy. He passed it down to his son, and eventually it was donated to the museum here.
He was a skinny guy.
Yes, he was very skinny, much skinnier than me. You'll notice several books down below here. These are all about the Santa Claus bank robbery. They're all very similar. Some have a little different details than others, but they're all fairly similar.
Were all of the robbers dressed as Santa Claus?
That's my understanding, but I don't know, I wasn't there. We're headed up the stairs to the second floor of the old Eastland County Jail. This is where Marshal Ratliff was being held after he was brought back from Huntsville on the bench warrant.
These steel steps are what they rolled down wrestling?
Yes.
Bet there were some bruises after that happened.
Oh yeah. He was being held.
Oh my gosh.
He was being held in one of these very primitive old cells.
Marshal Ratliff's plan involved sitting in one of these little cells, acting so convincingly crazy that the jailers actually felt comfortable leaving his cell door open while they fed the other prisoners.
My understanding, Marshal Ratliff was being held in one of these two cells when he was acting so crazy, and they had to hand feed him. And they left it unlocked, and the jailers went through this door, unlocked this door, and went into the main cell block to check in the other prisoners. And that's when Marshal Ratliff came out of here, went downstairs and found a gun, came back upstairs, went through here and shot one of the jailers. The other jailer tackled him somewhere in this area here, and they fell down these stairs. And that's, like I said, where the final bullet went off downstairs.
Good grief.
That would have been quite a fall down those stairs.
It would have been, and these stairs are all, they're steel and that not very forgiving, kind of sharp on the edges.
It's pretty sharp. My understanding, there was either a leg or an arm broken. I can't tell you which. It's been too long since I've read that part of the story. They didn't have a whole lot to do, so they tried to scratch their names into some of the doors, and you'll see different places where names have been scratched in.
We're in Eastland, Texas, exploring the Eastland County Jail and learning about the infamous Santa Claus bank robbers. The story began at First National Bank in Cisco, when Marshall Ratliff, dressed as Santa Claus, led his accomplices to rob the bank and engage in a shootout with police as they escaped, only to be captured in nearby Graham, Texas. After being sent to prison, Ratliff won a new trial and was brought to the Eastland County Jail yet again. There he grabbed a gun and killed a jailer. We've seen evidence of the ensuing struggle and stray gunshots. As we continue exploring the jail with Sheriff Wayne Bradford, we'll find even more evidence of the Santa Claus bank robbers.
This is the main cell block. You have to come through this door.
What is this?
Well, this is a control box to where they could actually pull one of these levers and release one cell door inside so they could come out and use the restroom.
Wow.
But they wouldn't have them all open, and they didn't have to go in there.
Yeah.
It's kind of archaic, but it worked.
Yeah. Oh, and it had a combination, so not anybody could get in there and just start releasing doors.
That's right.
Next, Sheriff Bradford took us into the old cell block. This is where the jailers were feeding the other prisoners when Marshall Ratliff snuck out of his cell, down the stairs, and stole a gun. And so there's 1, 2, 3, 4 cells in here?
That's it, 4 cells. Most of them had 4 bunks in each one.
Okay.
You'll see it's pretty primitive. The toilet was out here.
Yeah.
And there was only one for all of these prisoners.
Yeah.
And the sink, and they had 1 water cup up here, you'll see.
Oh, wow.
And it was very much primitive compared to what we have nowadays.
Yeah. Well, you know, the jails that I've seen now kind of look luxurious compared to these digs.
That's true.
Yeah, so sink and toilet, which you could come out and do your business with all of your cellmates watching you.
there was no privacy
no such
in here.
thing, huh?
They didn't have a whole lot to do, so they tried to scratch their names into some of the doors, and you'll see different places where names have been scratched in.
I can't get over how much steel is involved in.
It's very solid.
Yeah, this place isn't going anywhere. I think I noticed a fallout shelter sign on the front door when.
Absolutely, it was a fallout shelter at one time.
Yeah.
At least we know now where to hide if there's ever a tornado or a bomb.
Hey, look, we got a cameraman in here. Let's see what happens if we do. Oh, it's not gonna let me. All right, Nick, bye.
There's 2 of the Santa Claus bank robbers' names scratched into the wall. Robert Hill and Henry Helms.
Boy, they etched that into the steel, didn't they?
We're in Eastland, Texas, exploring the old Eastland County Jail, the site where Santa Claus bank robber Marshall Ratliff shot and killed a jailer before meeting his own doom at the hands of an angry mob. Our guide is longtime Eastland County Sheriff Wayne Bradford. Sheriff Bradford has shown us Ratliff's hanging rope, a bullet hole in the ceiling put there by Ratliff, and even the last cell Ratliff was held in. But elsewhere in the jail are traces of Ratliff's accomplices in the crime.
So when was this jail retired?
It was retired in 1980 whenever it no longer met the conditions or the requirements of the Texas Jail Commission.
Well, it met the requirements for not letting them get out.
That's very true.
Well, unless they left the door open and he acted crazy and ran out.
Yes.
Downstairs, the jail had big steel cages for cells. Upstairs, good old iron bars.
So why cages downstairs and bars here?
We're not really sure. It could have been different security levels, but there's not a whole lot of information as to why. The one thing we do know is that in the cell behind you here, there's 2 of the Santa Claus bank robbers' names scratched into the wall. Robert Hill and Henry Helms.
And those are, boy, they etched that into the steel, didn't they?
They did. Back the time this jail was in use, Most of the time they actually got metal forks to use to eat their food.
Really?
And that's what they used to scratch into the walls with.
Oh my gosh.
As we're headed downstairs to go see where the lynch mob took Marshall Ratliff out of the jail, the sheriff points out this large steel contraption that was on the floor and says that it came out of the dirt floor basement. Dirt floor basement? Can I go down there?
Sure.
Okay.
Just be careful.
All right.
And good luck.
Okay, thanks. This is some steep stairs. These are like the ones they fell down, too.
Oh yeah. There's a light switch there on your right as you're going down.
Okay. Oh, this is really cool. Old dirt floor basement, and you said you don't know what all's in here. I found an old piece of pipe. I think that's all that is, though. Wow, escape route. But they've got it all barred up. Old rusty jail bars. A little bit of plumbing. I don't know, Sheriff, you might could have some fun doing a little digging down here.
Maybe so.
There's nothing like exploring an old, dark, dirty basement.
And this is where they brought the prisoner out, and the mob assembled out in the street.
They drug him out the door.
They drug him out the door, and then they took him across the street.
Yeah.
And that's where the lynch mob hung him.
And where in relation to where we are did they hang him?
It was across the street on the end of the corner over here.
Okay. Out the side door of the jail is where the mob gathered and demanded the prisoner, Marshall Ratliff. Then they drug him down the road and across the street to where they hung him.
There was a telephone pole over here and a guy wire, and they threw the rope over the guy wire and hung him from that. The first rope broke. They went and got another rope, and that one was very successful. The chief of police cut him down sometime later. This is where the actual hanging took place. There was a utility pole right here with a guy wire coming off of it. And that's where they threw the rope over the guy wire and hung Marshall Ratliff. The people that owned the hotel erected this sign in this place.
So, owners of the hotel. So is this an abandoned hotel? We love abandoned hotels on this show.
No, it's an actual working hotel. You can actually stay there now. In fact, this belongs to them. This property does. They might have more information about how they blew down and, and making this sign.
This is an old building. This is an old hotel.
Yes.
Really? I bet there's a lot of history in there. We're going to have to go check in.
All right, sounds good.
All right, thank you, Sheriff, so much for showing us around.
You bet. I'm glad you could come.
Man, a lot of great history here in Eastland. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Let's go check out this hotel. Bonus, after seeing the marker, we learned that there's a 100-year-old hotel across from the Sheriff's Department that's still in operation. The historic Eastland Hotel started life nearly 100 years ago as the Stanley Hotel. Downstairs there was an old theater and a coffee bar, and I was just hoping to see what's left of the old Stanley Hotel.
Hi.
Hi, are you guys open?
Yeah, come on in.
All right. So is this a hotel you can actually stay in?
Yes, it is. It was originally built in 1918 as a boarding house during the oil boom, but since then it's been renovated and it now has 9 guest rooms and 3 apartments upstairs.
Really? So people could come stay in a historic hotel right here in Eastland, Texas?
Yeah.
That is so cool. Now, how would I get to see one of these rooms?
Well, you can stay if you want.
You have a vacancy?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm gonna be staying here with you because I am done. We finished the expedition at the old jail. We've told the whole story, so I think I'm gonna check in and take a load off.
Definitely.
There's nothing like winding down after a long trip in a nice hotel that just happens to be part of Eastland, Texas history. Texas history is full of stories of bank robberies, iron bar jails, and bad guys swinging by their necks. The bricks and steel of the old Eastland County Jail ensure that the building will be standing for a long time, a reminder of its colorful history. Nearby in Cisco, the old First National Bank building, the site of the Santa Claus Bank robbery, looks nothing like a bank. In fact, most recently it was an auto parts store. To see artifacts from the robbery itself, a visit to the Conrad Hilton Museum is an adventure in itself. There, in the building that housed Hilton's very first hotel, you'll find a wealth of information about the bank robbery and more history from Cisco, Eastland, and the Panhandle Plains of Texas. There's lost history all over the state of Texas, and on Expedition Texas, we're gonna find it.
We're cutting across.
Hey, what's going on? Guys, the show's over. The show is over. Turn it off. I'm trying to relax here. Turn it off.